Hey there, this is Franklin, and you're listening to Who Asked Us? Deep thoughts, lighthearted conversations. Here, you'll listen along as we discuss our way through the Bible with a growing, rotating panel of guests, none of which claim to be experts on any of this. We hope you get just as much out of these conversations as we did having them. Thanks for listening.
I don't know.
I am not one known for tact or delicacy. So let's continue into something else. Oh man.
Well, since Eugene's not prepared at all, and I don't think this is an issue.
I mean, like, come on, like, all right, like, at the end of the day, he's not prepared. So what do you say?
Well, we could just actually go through then. We've done that on other episodes where we'll actually go through bit by bit and talk our way through it in order. That sounds nice. Which, Ray, I'm curious to kick things off. What Bible do you use?
So I got here you mean like what translation?
Yeah, like we use, or at least, I don't know why I said we. I've been using the English Standard Version just because.
Yeah, I got ESV also, yep.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, I just don't know what everyone's been using. We talked about. I don't know which one I'm going to end up liking. I also don't know which one Catholics are supposed to use, so I'm just here.
I used to use New King James.
Okay.
I used to use New King James, but now I got this MacArthur Study Bible. Got some different, good notes to help you out if you feel like venturing into them. Yeah.
Well, you know what's interesting at the beginning of this? So I'm going to read a little bit of the beginning of this then. So it's from the beginning of 15, right? After these things, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. Fear not, Abram, I am your shield. Your reward shall be very great. I should have Kenneth read all the God moments. It's very Morgan Freeman-ish. But we'll keep moving. But Abram said, O God, Lord, what will you give me? For I continue childless, and the heir of my house is Eliezer of Damascus. And Abram said, Behold, you have given me no offspring, and a member of my house will be, a household will be my heir. I thought it was interesting because I felt like those two sentences were the exact same thing, just said differently. Did anybody else catch that?
Wait, what? What two sentences?
So he says basically, oh God, you haven't given me a child, and now this person is going to be the heir of my house. And then he says it again, you've given me no offspring, and a member of my household will be my heir. Like, he just says the same thing twice, which I thought was just, I don't know. I was like, oh, is that the same thing just said twice? Is that the same verse? No, it counts as two separate verses, So I don't know if anybody caught that.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, he is kind of saying the same thing twice. You know what? It's been like super on my mind lately, and actually it's been, I think, mainly from starting doing these podcasts, is realizing that so much of this is of the Bible, especially Old Testament, but also New Testament, is a summary of stories, right? And so I think about, like, if I went about my day and then gave someone a summary, I might say, all right, I did this and then I did that. And there was other stuff that happened in between. And maybe God doesn't give us all the details. Maybe, I'm not going to tell everyone every detail of the day. But it doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I've been finding, and it's, props to, thanks for putting together this podcast. I think because, like, I've been studying a little extra hard. I've been noticing that there's definitely areas that it's like, oh, there's a transition and it skipped a year. He went forward a year. He is saying the same thing.
Oh, you think that you think this went forward a year, or you're talking about something else?
Oh, no, like elsewhere, like, when we were back in Noah, that it's just like, all right, this happens, and then this happens, and then it's like, oh, actually, a year, or 6 months or something happened between there. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about that a while ago with Kenneth brought it up. He was like, what is the purpose of the Bible? Is it supposed to give every single detail along the way to prove its relevance? Or is it giving you the things that whoever the intended audience need to know? And I guess that's a good point. I don't know why this specific thing is said twice. It doesn't change the meaning. I just thought it was just interesting that it was said twice. Anybody else have a comment on that before we move on? Kenneth?
I'm not sure. But the first one is in response to the vision.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one, if you look at the first, two sentences, God basically talks to Abram in a vision, saying something, and Abram responds, right?
Yep.
And then the second one, which is verse 3, and then basically also verse 4, it's and, right? So I think that does imply time, because Abram doesn't say and. There's the word behold, which is, people don't use that language anymore, but it's like, hey, look. it's like at this point, this time Abram's initiating it. It's not a vision, and Abram's saying, "Hey, look, you have given me no offspring," which is different from what he said before, where he said, "Oh Lord, what will you give me? Because I don't have a child and I don't have an heir." Right? That's what he said in response to the initial vision. And then there's an and it seems like it's saying the same thing, but this is a little different because now this time Abram's initiating it. He's like, "Look, basically, look, you still haven't given me anything, right? You haven't given me that child that I wanted, and someone of my household is going to be my heir." So it's kind of like, I think it implies time and it implies frustration.
I would agree with the implication.
That's
of
what I'm getting to.
I don't know if I would go for the implication of time, but I don't think the time matters as much as the frustration. Like now he's going, hold on, you didn't fulfill your end of the bargain, whenever that was. In both instances, he does talk about having an heir. Before he says, the heir of my house is Eliezer of Damascus, and later he just says, a member of my house is my heir, aka like a servant.
Will be.
Yeah. But I'd get the frustration part. Now one was like, I'm still childless, and the other one is,
I'm totally on the side of frustration.
Yet.
So at like first glance, I'm reading it. So you're telling me that you're giving me no children. So who's going to inherit this? You seriously giving me no children. So who is this who's going to inherit anything from me? I totally get frustration out of that. It feels conversational. It doesn't really feel as if it's inferring that time is passing at all. It just feels like he's just doubling down on what he's saying, just out of frustration and grievance.
Which is interesting because, everyone talks about the faith of Abram, which I think, yes, this man is, credit where credit is due, has been way more faithful than I would be in a lot of the situations of my life, right? I struggle and have struggled, but he's getting, I don't want to say angry with God, but I guess a little frustrated. We'll keep using that word. And God doesn't have any wrath towards that. He could take it,
That's why I'm saying it implies time, right? Because if after that vision he comes out and then, his wife is like, "Oh, I'm pregnant," like he wouldn't.
Well, he's been promised.
That frustration is a.
But where are you getting time from this? If I'm reading, don't be afraid. I'm your shield. Like
it's logical.
I'm your shield. I'm the reward. Mm-hmm. I am the person I am the thing, the being, the all that you can go to whenever you need anything. And like Franklin said before, you didn't fulfill your end of the bargain. Where it's like, you're telling me that you're my shield. You're telling me that you're my reward, but I don't have this thing. So now what am I going to pass on, right? And I'm naturally supposed to pass it on to my next born of kin, but I don't have that. And you were supposed to give me that. Or not even supposed to, but you said you were going to give me that, and I don't have that. So who's going to do it? The person that's cleaning my house? Are they going to get that?
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. It does imply a time, because if it was like the first time he said this, why would Abram be that frustrated? Why would you be frustrated if there was no time that had passed?
The time has passed. What chapter was it that God promised him offspring that will number the stars? Wasn't that like 12? So time has passed. I don't know if time has specifically passed here. And like I said, I feel like this is whenever we have an impasse, we go, and does it even matter with the meaning? And my argument would still be honestly, no. I
guess it doesn't matter if time passed.
I know. I'm just saying, but it's always our cop out.
You've had this conversation before, where you wouldn't be this frustrated if you didn't say, "I'll give you children. I'll help you have children." And you're like, "You said this before."
At this point, it's not like Abram's just like, "Oh, you can hold up your end of the bargain." It's more like you didn't end up he says I continue childless. Okay, so he's saying that the first time in verse 2, that time has passed. Then the second time, and Abraham said. So maybe it's conjunction. Maybe it's just an addition to. But why would he say it again? It's not necessarily why would he say it again. It's why would they write it again? If you're writing,
I think they needed to showcase his frustration. Why would you write it
twice?
That I am so stuck on this frustration.
Yeah, and maybe that's what it is. Yeah, maybe it's not time. Maybe it's just literally they're like you just said, showcasing. They're emphasizing. That's the word I was thinking about. Emphasizing his frustration is like, I continue childless. Look, you didn't give me any children. Like, you're giving me this vision, but it doesn't hit right because I still feel.
And I think
like
you would just
I've
assume
been-
that human to
I'm
human.
waiting
Like
for
it doesn't
something that
say.
hasn't happened yet.
Abram says angrily, "Look, you have it. It just implies it. It's like, hey, you haven't given me this thing. So what am I supposed to do? You seriously have not given me this thing. What am I supposed to do?"
Mm-hmm.
You want to know what AI says about this?
I was like, please tell me.
Look it up.
That could be a whole thing. I remember the first time that my pastor mentioned that he was like, doing something with AI, and my wife was like, people, I don't know, people have different feelings on like AI shouldn't get mixed up with God in the Bible. Anyway, AI says in Genesis 15, the word behold, the Hebrew is hine, functions as an attention-grabbing imperative or a demonstrative particle, commanding Abram to stop, focus, and observe something of high significance.
Mm-hmm.
And then it summarizes it again. It says, essentially, when behold is used in this chapter, it demands that the reader pauses to recognize a crucial, pivotal point in the relationship between God and Abram.
So maybe it's not a passage of time, actually. Maybe it's really just Abram saying, like, Abram emphasizing his problem when he's saying behold.
Focus on
like,
this.
he's saying behold to
Yeah.
God at verse 3. He's like, listen, hold on, wait a second. You're saying fear not. And just in context for people just jumping in, this comes right after the whole Abram goes, rescues Lot from
For context to Eugene.
well, I mean, other people may just jump into an episode. No, but like,
Yeah, I wasn't on.
this comes right.
I wasn't on the last
and
episode. I would have
also
liked to
Ray-
talk about Melchizedek, but that's all right.
Yeah. So this just comes right off the heels. So in 14, the chapter right before this, Abram goes and rescues Lot from being captured or kidnapped or whatever, and does all these things and comes back from this great battle. And so God comes. So now, at the beginning of 15, that's what it says after these things. So after that happened with that battle, and Abram was able to rescue Lot and win the battle, God's like, fear not, right? I am your shield. Your reward will be very great. But Abram doesn't care about the battle. He doesn't really care about that. He's like, yeah. But you said I'd have a kid. I have no children. And all these things that I've gotten, because, Abram at this point is wealthy. He's strong. He has a big household. He has servants and stuff like that. It's like, I'm going to lose it all. Like, it doesn't mean anything to me, right?
Which is, it's interesting.
Poor
because
Eliezer. He's not going to get that.
Yeah.
He's like, I've been cleaning this place up for years.
Once that kid comes,
He's
gonna
gonna
be
be
like,
so upset.
"Oh
Yeah.
man!" No, but it's interesting that that Abram kind of doesn't put two and two together. I feel like when God says, "Fear not, Abram, I am your shield," saying basically like, I was the one who defended you in this battle. Because I think it's fair to say, I was kind of surprised Abram was able to go into battle and be any type of victorious. He didn't strike me as somebody that was powerful in that way, So I am your shield. Your reward shall be very great. I instantly, and maybe it's because of my context, knew it wasn't going to be the reward similar to what was offered to him in the previous chapter, because he specifically was like, I don't want that stuff. And also arguably doesn't need that stuff. So I think it's just interesting that he didn't go, oh, my reward will be great. He's talking about the reward that I've been promised. He hasn't forgotten about it. I guess from his perspective, turning around and going, yeah, you keep talking about this reward, but when's that coming my way? Because he hasn't given a timeline. Again, that could be
I don't
pretty
think he's saying
frustrating,
he's going to
but
have
I
a
am just
reward.
surprised.
It sounds like he's saying that I am your reward. I'm looking after you. The fact that I am protecting you is your reward. I am the thing that you should be grateful for.
You want to read
So my verse
what
1
your verse
says,
1 says? Eugene?
After this, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward.
Whoa, that is so different.
Yeah, that's
I'm
very
reading the
different.
English Standard Version. I
crazy.
Are you
use
sure you're reading?
I use Bible Gateway, and so I was on the New International Version, and then as soon as
NIV.
most of you said the ESV, I was like, oh, let me just go to that one, and I didn't know I had the option to do that, and so I went to the ESV, and this is what it says, and I guess
That
it's
is
very
not
different
what
than
my
what you're
ESV version.
So-
I don't know what kind of bootleg version you got. That doesn't seem like
No.
ESV.
No, actually, I got up here I feel like King James is, even though like it's only half understandable, is like good to go back to. But yeah, it says, after these things, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision, saying, fear not, Abram, I am thy shield and thy exceeding great reward. Saying, I am the great reward. That is different than ESV.
Thanks, Raymond.
Eugene's
Wow.
got it.
Yeah.
But so we've never really hit it where it's because ours, just for context for the two of you, says, "Fear not, Abram, I am your shield." Semicolon.
I don't have a semicolon.
Your reward shall be very great.
Mm. So yeah, in times like this would be good to.
Ken. What do we do?
Unfortunately, we only know English. We don't know Hebrew, so we would just look at the Hebrew word and we'd figure out what is the best translation for this thing. Is it?
I mean, but this is why Raymond's
reward shall be very great, or is it comma?
His
What is
AI
your
overview made more sense to me, saying that it's a pivotal point because he's not only clearly annoyed and frustrated and angry and upset, but he's vocalizing that to the Lord. Like, who does that? Like, you're saying that, look, I am the end all be all. I'm everything that you ever need, everything that you want. Come to me for everything, guidance, anything. And you're arguing back with that. Like, that's crazy. So I see why it would be a pivotal point, because I don't think anyone has done that. Think about, from the passages I've read, Noah, God said, build an ark. He just said, okay, right? There's no, what, you got me doing this? You never told me, you didn't have anybody else do it. Like, no one's really fighting back. They're just following his word.
Has anyone even spoken back? I know Abram hasn't spoken back before when God has spoken directly to him. He's just done what God asked him to do.
That's a good point. I think this is the first time so far in the narrative, outside of like Adam saying like it's your fault, but this is the first time Abram is, and I don't think Abram is really speaking back in terms of like.
No, not like, hey, don't.
No, but he's basically and we'll see this other times in the Bible too later on. But he's actually challenging God to hold up.
And if we see this later on, this is why this AI
if that makes any sense.
Saying that it's such a pivotal point makes so much sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
God, you love AI so much.
Allen Iverson is
AI.
Arguably shooting hard.
No, right?
What did he just say? What? What does that mean?
Allen Iverson, the basketball.
Who is that?
You don't watch small b-ball?
I don't know what that means. No, I don't.
So,
I did like everybody's response to my brother's fantasy baseball league.
You're like,
well done,
I don't even watch baseball. Like, I didn't even, my response was just, I don't even think I actually opened up the chat. I just saw the message like on the little notification badge. I just swiped away.
I don't think you knew my real response. I'm sitting there watching TV with Kelsey, and I'm just like, I see the text, and I'm like, and then I just hung up. I was like,
now I have to put an explicit on this episode.
I saw the explicit one on the other Spotify one. I was like, well, why is this episode explicit? And then I'm listening to it. I'm like, Franklin, dirty potty.
No, it was.
You could also just clip that part. That's the only part where I said anything.
So, question.
Oh, just real quick. I spent the last minute. I'm sorry, I wasn't listening to you guys last minute. I was just going through chapters. I was like, all right, has anyone spoken to God before except for Adam? Yeah, Cain says to the Lord. I mean, But,
Cain.
Cain says, my punishment is greater than I can bear. And then it's a bunch more. I was just curious.
Well, that's no. I love that, because that was kind of what I was thinking to myself. Either the only time people have responded has been when they've had an issue with God, right? Adam turned around and was like, hey, the thing you created for me, it's not a good helper because she actually made me eat this thing, you have Cain going, this punishment's too great, I can't handle this. Meanwhile, God is just with a capital J. And then now in this moment, Abram's like, yeah, you keep promising, when am I going to get it? And I think it's interesting, and I'm sure I'm only feel this way because of the context of how I live my life and when I live my life. But we talked about this in a previous episode. I don't praise God because of the things God is going to give me. I'm not working towards a reward. I won't say no thank you to heaven if it's offered to me, if I do well enough that I'm allowed to go there, or however that works. But I think it's interesting that people are going, I'm doing this for you, God, because you promised me this. Meanwhile, and I think, Ken, you said this, and I've loved this, the idea of if only Abram went to heaven, then that is still more than humanity deserves for how we are. This idea that God doesn't owe us anything.
I don't think that's what they're doing, though. So
anything.
If correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like this relates to Pavlov's law, right? Where people are actually, not even people, but working for a reward. And naturally, you are working for a reward, no matter what it is, right? But I don't think that's what they're doing. It feels like to me, from what I've read, and the only time I read Bible passages is when we're doing this. So Raymond, don't judge me. But
All good.
I feel like it feels like people have been blindly listening because it was working. They're not doing it because I'm going to get something out of this, but I've been listening to you, and great thing has been happening. So why would I not continue to listen to you? And then when something happens negatively, of course there's going to be some pushback. Like, why?
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean this is going to happen? Well, you said this is going to happen, so why? I've been listening to you this whole time.
I think what Eugene is getting at, and this is me with my spoilers. I think what Eugene is getting at is actually the point, right? Because at this point, Abram has been doing everything that God has been telling him to do. Everything. We haven't, besides that one time when he lied about his wife or whatever. But
yeah, but God didn't.
Abram has been doing.
Do that.
I mean,
I get what you're saying.
I guess not.
Yeah.
But yeah, at this point, Abram's been doing everything, right? And he's like, I'm not getting out of it what you said, right? And I think that's the point of this part of it. And maybe we'll get into more of it, but I think that's kind of the point so far, is that I don't think Abram's wrong. Abram's not wrong. He's actually correct.
I don't think he's wrong.
Saying, like, yeah.
I think. Can I interject? I think Eugene's comment only makes sense if I don't think anyone was just following what God said for no work towards reward, because almost in every instance, God has been like, either do this thing for this reason, even like Noah, right? Hey, do this thing because I'm going to flood the world, and do you want, save, like I would be doing this to save my family, right? Abram right now, the idea of, hey, if you want leave your father's tent, and I'll promise you, descendants as countless as the stars. Everyone has kind of had an incentive, but I would agree with, if you want to say they've been trusting him without any reward at first. You know what I mean? I think Noah could have easily been like, what is this entity talking to me about flooding the earth? I'm going to look crazy. There's societal pressures. Maybe I won't do this. He had every reason to not do that. Abram could have turned around and said, how do I know that this entity is going to give me descendants as numerous as the stars? I'm pretty comfortable in my father's tent. Maybe I won't go. So I'd say, sure, if you want to say that everyone so far has been trusting God's promises, sure, but they have definitely been working towards the reward that God promised from the beginning of those interactions. And like I said, I'm coming from a perspective of, I know some of these stories. I know God provides. I have a whole religion trying to teach me that as an institution, right? Abram is known as the father of his religion, so he doesn't have the same context. So maybe that incentive is necessary from the human perspective, and that's fine. I just think it's interesting that him going, hey, you haven't held up your end of the bargain. It's like, Abram, look at your life. Yeah, you're childless, and that stinks. But the rest of it is pretty good. The fact that you have an heir that's a servant of your household, you're not the servant already, and so. Yeah,
he got pretty rich lately.
Yeah,
that's not why he left. That's not why
I know it's not why he left. I'm just saying, like, it's not
Abram
like...
didn't ask for riches. He asked for...
that is fair.
Yeah, because I could promise you now, if you told me today, look, move to this city, start your whole life over, I am going to bless you with 3 happy, beautiful, healthy children. I get to that new city, you say, here's a mansion, here's a Range Rover, here is a Tesla, here's whatever nice car you want. Here are a flock of women coming after you. And you're like, this isn't what I left for, though. You told me that you were going to give me 3 happy, healthy, beautiful children.
Yeah.
But you're throwing all of these riches my way that most would be grateful for. Yes, I'm grateful that my life is great right now, but this is not what our agreement was. You told me I would have...
Oh, go ahead. Finish. I'm sorry.
No, that was basically... You told me I would have these 3 healthy, happy, beautiful children, but you're giving me other things that other people found valuable, not what I found valuable, and not what our agreement was.
But that's why, so Abram and this situation, it's a reflection of us, right? How often are we more worried about, or I'm sorry, it's a reflection of what we should be worrying about. We're looking at Abram right now, who has all these things, who has what most consider would be a pretty nice life, and he's like, that's not what I've been working for. This is the meaningful thing. So it's kind of cool to see that reflected there. I don't know. It's kind of
so let's continue.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm glad you did that, because I was going to ask, because moving forward it says, sorry for cutting you off. I didn't know you were going to do that as well, but I feel great right now. So, and we'll see. Let's see how different my verse is than yours.
Yeah.
If I may. So, verse 4, where it says, "Then the word of the Lord came to him. This man will not be your heir, but a son who is your own flesh and blood will be your heir." He took him outside and said, "Look up at the sky and count the stars. If needed, you can count them." Then he said to him, "So shall your offspring be."
Yeah, seems, a few different words here and there, but the idea is totally the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of God's response. So I'll read mine so you can hear it too. "And behold, the word of the Lord came to him. This man shall not be your heir. Your very own son shall be your heir. And he brought him outside and said, Look towards heaven and number the stars, if you are able to number them. Then he said to him, So shall your offspring be. And he believed the Lord, and he counted and he believed the Lord, and he counted it to him as righteousness."
Ken, you read that way better than I do. It's so nice. So soothing.
That was really nice.
It's all about the cadence. Slow up the pauses. You gotta slow down a little bit.
That was really nice.
But so God's response is like, to be ultimately, his response is like, no, what you're worried about is not going to happen. Like, I'm going to keep my end of the bargain. Basically, it's like, I'm going to keep my end of the bargain. And I'm going to show you how much I'm going to keep my end of the bargain. Go outside, look at the stars. Now, I lived most of my life in New York. I did not see any stars really when I went outside. But I did go to the Mojave Desert once with a friend. And I was in the desert, and I looked up at night, and I saw, like, the Milky Way. I saw so many. I was like, wow, this has always been up there at all times. There's mad stars. Like, you really can't count them. So that actually had more impact on me when I was able to see the stars for once in my life.
That's cool.
But he's like, so shall your offspring be. But I think verse 6 is the key verse, right? Because everything else before then is just reasonable for Abram. But verse 6 is something that makes it special. Because Abram does that, looks at the stars, and then it says he believed. So Abram believed the Lord, and so I guess the Lord counted it to him, Abram, as righteousness. And I think that's very important, right?
I see it the other way, though. I see Abram crediting the Lord as righteousness, not the Lord crediting Abram as righteousness.
Hold on a second. Both of the he's in my version are lowercase h's. Do they not make it an uppercase h if it's he being God?
No, that's usually only in like King James version.
Oh, okay.
They do that, yeah.
Yeah, it. I would say it almost like I would say it most definitely is saying that God counted Abram as righteous. Only because like in the New Testament, there's like many verses that go back and quote this. Talking about Abram and him being counted righteous due to his faith and believing in the Lord.
Oh, okay.
And I think that's the key, right? Yeah. And this is the whole faith aspect of it. It's Abram knows for a fact God promised him something. Also knows for a fact that he doesn't have it. And God's like, you will have it. And Abram's like, I guess I'll believe you, right? That's the faith aspect of it. And then counting it to him as righteousness. Righteousness meaning like, you are right. You are in a right standing with me. Like, I will treat you now favorably because you're not the opposite of righteousness. You're not wrong. You're not wicked. You're not everything. So it's just the relationship between God and Abram is like this. It's God believes. Abram believes in God. Yeah. And God is, just because Abram believes in him, God is treating that as Abram is righteous. He's special. Not because of anything Abram did or does. He's not really that great of a person. We've already seen, like, he's done some wild things already. So that's not what makes Abram righteous. What makes Abram righteous in God's eyes is that, hey, he at least still trusts me when I say.
You know what this reminds me of is the idea that, because it's so easy to go, oh, look, Abram trusted in God and kept faith in God, and so the thing Abram most wants, Abram is going to get. And so that sounds like, so if I really want something, I just have to ask God for it and have faith, and God will give me that thing.
Mm.
And I don't think that's true. So it's just, it's just interesting kind of looking at that. And I get why people would think that. I think that's why a lot of people think if you want something, pray for it and you will get it. But I think it's more, if you want something, pray for it. And if God can allow it, and you know what I mean? If that works in the plan.
At least so far, I mean, you can ask God for whatever, but in this thing, God's literally telling him, "I'm going to give it."
Oh,
to
yes,
you.
I know, but I think there's moments where we
now
look
ask for wild things.
Well, here's the thing. So Abram, I think Abram counts as a prophet, right? Has been in direct communication with God. It sounds like in this way where he's being told to do things and etc. I think we do look at these people sometimes as representations of us, right? Like, for example, we need to have faith like Abram had faith. But that doesn't mean every aspect of the story of Abram can be a substitute for us now. So it's just interesting because I'm not saying I believe if you pray for something, you'll just get that thing. I specifically don't. I think there's a lot of hardships in life that you can't just pray away. And I look at those and I go, and that's because that's God's plan. And you know what I mean? Because nothing happens without him allowing it. But I think it's just, as I read that, I go, I get why people would think that.
Yeah. Okay. Can we unpack this for a second?
Yeah.
So, I have this very specific memory of being in my, growing up, my parents put me in religion classes, like, Roman Catholic religion classes. And I remember being, I got baptized as an infant, I got confirmed. And
you were a Roman Catholic?
Yeah, for Franklin's very happy.
Come on back,
I got
buddy.
a confirmation name, man.
Really?
I do. It's
what is
Stephen,
it?
after the martyr.
Stephen.
You didn't?
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Ken is not a fan of the Catholics for some reason, and that's going to be its own episode. I'm so excited.
Yeah, so and then I really didn't. But I'm about to break your heart, though, because I'm about to say why I kind of like walked away from that.
Oh, okay.
So or at least the start of it. I remember being in kindergarten. Right? And being at religion class or first grade, something like that. And I remember the teacher saying, so you ask, teaching us about God, you ask God for things, you pray to God. And I remember saying to myself, first grade, saying, God, I want Cynthia to like me. This girl I had a crush on. Cynthia, if you're listening, I prayed for you to like me. You didn't, but that's okay. I'm happily married.
Cynthia is going, is it me?
Is it me? But I can specifically remember, like, a few months later, like, being at a religion class and us praying again, and me being like, oh, is this God thing real? Because he didn't answer my prayer.
Yeah.
And
I feel like a lot of people have that, man.
Yeah. And so, it's totally so, like, why should we pray? Why should we pray to God, right? So God is going to give us what is best for us, right? God has his will and his will be done. But God still asks us to pray to him. The Bible, the scriptures are very clear that we should still pray. Jesus knew from the beginning of time that the plan was for him to be crucified for our sins. Yep. Yet, still, right before he prayed, Father, if it is your will, let this cup pass. He knew that there wasn't enough, but he still, he still pleaded. He still brought that to the Father. And so we, I think it's a good thing to unfold and talk about a little bit, the fact that we know it's not always going to go our way, but God still wants us to have that relationship with him. God still wants us to ask. God still wants us to walk through it. Yeah, go for it.
So, with all of that, it kind of moves forward in this because I was, as people were talking before, I was kind of reading ahead just to kind of get a better understanding.
Doing your homework in class, totally get it.
I do it all the time. But you bringing up Jesus dying on the cross for us, but why these extreme punishments, do you think? Because that feels, to me, unnecessary. And also
the extreme punishment for Jesus is what you're asking?
In general. So moving forward in the story right now, my understanding is that he's like, look, Abram kept trusting him And he's like, look, just send me, goat, sheep, ram, send me this stuff. I will take care of you. And he's like, I will give you your children. I will. But these children are going to be outcasted. These children are going to be punished. These children are going to be treated terribly where they are. Why? Why such these extreme punishments to give you what you want? And the thing that you had an agreement with me about, because and I'm sorry. So like a personal anecdote was everything I told you about in the beginning of this whole thing, everything felt lined up perfectly, where it's, okay, the job, right? The job I wanted was going to be at a school, Department of Psychiatry, something that I've been very interested in learning more about. And on top of that, the schedule would have been perfect. It would have been a hybrid job in the office Tuesday through Thursday, work from home Monday and Friday. I would have basically a college schedule. I'd be off winter breaks, spring breaks. And so I was picturing spending all of that time with my new child. And then on top of that, this was a new career path, not even just a job. And so later on, my child would have the option of attending that school if they wanted to. So everything seemed perfectly lined up, right? So in the end, I got neither of those things. Not just the job and no child, and not just a child and no job. It was neither, for extenuating circumstances as well. It was a miscarriage, which put her through hell. And the job, which it was due to a death in the family, and so now they had to change business decisions. That, to me, lines up too perfectly to not coincide with each other, where I'm like, I think one did affect the other, at least in my life. And I wasn't necessarily praying to God. I had a conversation, and I do this often because I don't speak to him enough, where I think I should talk to you and ask for things. But I'm going to have a conversation with you and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to work hard to do this. This would be nice to have, and this is why. And I always preface it with, look, I don't talk to you enough. I know, right? But this is what I'm doing, and I'm really hoping that it comes true. But I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure it happens. None of it happened, right? But it was extenuating circumstances. It's not like it just didn't work out. So it feels like not everything in my life, but everything in this story, everything with Abram's child, Jesus dying for our sins, it was so extreme. And it's not like it just didn't work.
That's the tests, the trials and tribulations that make it easy for one to grow or one to break, right? And if there were no tests, no trials and tribulations, there's no testing of who you are as a person, right? And that's the whole point of those type of things, right? Especially if the point of life, and this is like, oh, what's the meaning of life? Or at least here, right? It's not that you become some sort of pet and then you die, right? Or some sort of flower in the field that blooms, withers and dies and is gone forever. It's testing you as an individual in many different ways. So God definitely does and that is what's also peculiar is especially when it's things that are literally outside of your control, really outside of your control. Yeah, they're on you to test you as a person always. And it's not when we'll see this with Abram, God intentionally puts Abram through some tests on purpose. And it's not like he just does it to he does it to everybody. Every human, every person goes through some sort of issue, or at least you would hope that you do, because that means God cares enough to actually put you through some issues. But it's all just testing of who you are. And, the Bible says to count it as all joy when you're faced with various trials and tribulations, because it can build up in you patient endurance. But the fact that it even says that is because that's not a joyful thing, right? It's not something that you're like, oh, I can't wait to be tested again. I can't wait to go through some struggle in life that makes me a better person. And, no one likes that. But at the same time, people who don't ever go through struggles in life are usually not that great people. So it's a tough thing. But if you look at the world and how God made the world, or nature made the world, if you don't really believe in God, it's not one of everything's sunshine and roses. It's you're constantly tested to become better or to be crushed, right? And that's kind of really what it is.
Well, and I think there's a big and in there, right? Because life is hard, and you could say it's hard with God or without God, right? Like you could say if we're just chalking it up to nature and that life is hard to survive, then it's hard just because life is hard and no other reason. Whereas I think God can add these tests in your life not just to test you and to build your endurance, but also to coax and guide you into the direction that is most beneficial to you. So, and I'm not looking to dive into your personal life on this podcast if you don't want to or anything like that. Obviously, you know,
No, it's fine.
yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
But
Because I can also tell you that too. Go ahead.
Well,
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. So I think even right now, hearing your outlook on all this stuff, and I hesitate. I hate interrupting myself. I feel like it makes me hard to follow. But I do want to say I don't think it's as cut and dry as this hard thing happened to you for you to learn this lesson.
Yeah.
I think it's way more intertwined than that.
I don't think it's
no.
that
I
either.
don't I could think because what I'm about to say is going to make it sound like that. But I want to make it clear I don't think it's that cut and dry. But I do think just hearing about you talking about, wow, it made me realize that this is something I want and that, oh, look, I could create a career path for myself that could work for my family, which is something I didn't even consider right now, and this and that and the other thing. So it sounds like you've learned a lot in these tests, and assuming that and even the fact that you're turning around and saying, and I asked God for help here, but I didn't ask him for enough help because I didn't think I deserved it because my actions, I'm not talking to him often enough. I'm not praying to him often enough. I'm not worshiping him often enough. So there's lessons for you to be learned along the way that God's, like a good teacher, doesn't tell you the lesson. They put you in a position where you develop an understanding of what you need to understand. So you have ownership over that information so that you understand it at a real clean pace, right? So I just think that's also something to consider, that these tests aren't just to make things hard and not just to make you earn something that he could have arbitrarily just given to you. Because a lot of people say that. Why make us suffer for it, right? Why make us earn it? But I think part of it is so that utilizing our free will, we can create the decisions in an environment that God laid out for us, the right decisions to move our life forward.
And just to clarify, tests doesn't mean like, oh, do you know? No, the test actually builds you, right? It's the test that, it's not like you got built and now it's just like, okay, pass a test. It's like you learn on the test. That's kind of the whole point about it.
Yes, that's what I'm clarifying.
Yeah. And then on top of that, sometimes bad things just happen to you, not because of you at all. They just happen.
Or because of you that you didn't notice. Like, I'm not saying that, but that's why when that happened in our life, we went, oh, diets need to change. Because I don't know if it was that, but maybe. And so I'm not taking that chance again, right? So, like, there's so many variables, and that's why I think at the end of the day, the answer is, we turn to God and go, God, like, I don't have this, I don't have that. This didn't work out the way that I thought it was supposed to, and God is going to go, hold on, and he's going to have our moment with us to say, look at the stars. And I'm not specifically talking about descendants for all of us. I'm more just talking about the idea of, I do have a plan for you, and I did not forget about that plan for you. So God may not have promised all of us anything specific in our conversation right now, but I do think as long as we trust God and are including him and allowing him to influence our lives, I think that there is a great path in life for all who do that, whatever it may be. But a similar promise that God has not forgotten about, whatever that is. I just don't think he specified it in my life specifically, and that's okay.
Yeah, and I looked at it for the past few years. Honestly, over the past year, I've failed so much and I've learned so much from those failures that even with talking with him this one time for this specific situation, I even took the negative paths and I said, look, if I fail, please don't let this be a lesson to, show me how to fail and teach my child a lesson, or failing in front of a child and showing them, look, this is how you overcome this. Like, please don't let that be this.
Yeah.
And instead of it being that, I'm going to try to make this make sense. It didn't work too perfectly where
I see what you're saying.
it just,
yeah,
the chances of both of them failing in the way they did,
it's uncanny. Yeah,
like, that makes too much sense.
I always say this to my wife because I'm a jerk, and she.
Are you?
Well, yeah, no. Like, so when we watch a show, like a detective show or a murder mystery, and she doesn't get something, and I'm like, it's kind of obvious, right? There's something going on. The mark of intelligence is the ability to recognize patterns, recognize certain things, right? I mean, even in AI, the whole point of AI is recognizing patterns mathematically through matrices. But if you're looking at your life and you're seeing certain things and you're recognizing something that doesn't seem just random, it seems kind of there's something going on there. That's just a mark of intelligence, a mark of intellect, an ability to comprehend and understand that something is going on that's not just random events. I don't know why I brought that up, but I guess it's my way of saying there's a little mark of intelligence.
Exactly with what's going on in my personal life, so that makes sense. But
Ken did just call you smart. I want to make that very clear.
And I'm going to hold on to that for the rest of my life. So that, but so as we were talking about those punishments back right here in verse 12, he says, as the sun was setting, Abram fell into a deep sleep, and a thick, dreadful darkness came over him. Then the Lord said to him, know for certain that for 400 years your descendants will be strangers in a country not their own, and that they will be enslaved and mistreated there. But I will punish the nation that they serve as slaves, and afterward they will come out with great possessions. You, however, will go to your ancestors in peace and be buried at a good old age. In the 4th generation, your descendants will come back here, for the sin of the Amorites has not yet reached its full measure.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that, Eugene? Or you want to pass the buck?
Pass it to Ray. I want Ray to break this down.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know why, but I do.
Feels like he's stewing.
Because I got some thoughts, but I want to save it for last, because the best is always last.
Nah, go ahead.
Oh, so save Ray for last is what you're saying?
Yeah, go ahead,
exactly.
I just want to apologize one more time. I can't be here that much longer. We got some stuff going on.
Okay.
Yep.
But I do want to hear this analysis by Raymond.
Oh, no, I was passing off. Go ahead, Kenneth.
All right, go ahead.
What were you going to say?
Okay. So there's a number of things here that I think is really interesting. But one, so the reason why God's even doing this is because right before, God says in verse 7, hey, I'm the one who brought you out, and I'm going to give you this land too. So it's another promise. God promises land. God. But then Abram, being smart, Abram was like, in verse 8, hold on, how am I to know that I'm supposed to possess this land, right? Like, give me something. So then God goes through this entire like vision thing or great deep sleep, and he shows him this, and he's, I'm telling you these things, right?
Well, you're gonna have Didn't he says, how am I to know? And then they go through the agreement process that you would normally do in such an exchange, right? Isn't that?
Yeah, you get like a heifer and
before the vision. I just want to make sure.
You just slaughter some animals. And
it was like an ancient ceremony.
No, yeah, I just want to make sure. I thought that was the response to.
No, that doesn't tell you. That doesn't tell you anything. If it was just ended with the animals being.
No. But I'm saying it's. So he goes, oh Lord, how am I to know that I shall possess it being the land? And he goes, all right, well, let's make the contract right now. Basically, they're doing the ancient version of what that would be, and I think that's what assured Abram that he was going to get it. He was like, okay, God is literally, we're doing the thing, and we're exchanging, and we're cutting the animals.
That was a mark of the covenant.
Yes,
a promise that he's making. It's like, let's do a sacrifice, but then the showing him is the key part, though, right? Like if you did that without actually that's not really that. There has to be a sign alongside with the covenant, or else you're just like, why would you do those things? That's just kind of wild.
I thought that was just the contractual agreement that most people did. Like if you had a covenant with a guy over land exchange, that wasn't God.
Yeah, I mean that was the practice to do back in those days. Like you would kind of seal a deal. I mean, they didn't sign a piece of paper.
Yes,
right? They would.
This was that
sacrifice an animal. Yeah, this was that. But this showing is part of that. Is what I'm trying to. This is not like a separate event. That's what I'm trying to say. Like this is not a separate event from that whole point.
Sure.
So, does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess like I looked at it as, if I was like, I have nothing to prove for this, and he was like, all right, let's like put it down on paper, so to speak, and they did that thing, and then God goes even further to describe that, like, not only am I letting you know that you're gonna have these descendants, but I'm gonna tell you I'm gonna give you the history of what's going to happen with them. I'm going to be very specific about it right now, almost to prove even further. You know?
So you think this is going above and beyond?
I think so. It
Okay.
seemed like, the idea, because I think that's what he was saying is like, I have nothing to show for this land promise you gave me. And he's like, all right, let's make it official.
Mm-hmm. Well, anyway, going into, and I'm not saying any way to dismiss it, but I just
No, and there's
interest of
nothing more to
time.
go into. Yeah.
Yeah. So then he goes and explains this, like, okay, listen, your offspring will inherit this land, but I guess he's kind of doing a disclaimer. They're gonna inherit the land like I promised, but before then, they're actually gonna go and be afflicted and be basically servants somewhere else, in some other nation. But I'll take them out. I'll punish the nation that mistreats them, and they'll come in with great possessions, and then they'll take the land, right? Because of what he says at the end of that, in verse 16, end of verse 16, for the iniquity, or I guess here it says sin, of the Amorites is not yet complete, which means there are people currently living in the land called the Amorites.
Oh.
But they're not evil enough
for me to judge them yet.
Justify taking their land away.
But they will be.
Yes, in 400 years, they'll be evil enough where God can justify taking their land away. But
that's so interesting.
How much time were they really talking about? Because 400 years is crazy.
Yeah, 400 years.
I think
it's four generations. I think it
might be like 400 years ish. I mean, because the people of Israel have not even technically been created yet, and then they go. I know a little bit of it. They go to Egypt on good terms, and then flash forward. Now they're in Egypt on bad terms.
After
and then they
400
leave.
Years, they're a whole people now, right?
Yeah,
it's not
now
just like
40
one
years
person
of wandering the desert,
now
and
they're a whole
then
race.
they go to the promised land.
Yeah. So God's just like, hey, I can't really bring you into this land, your children, right now, because there's people living there, and they're actually okay people. So I'm not gonna just kick them out their land, right? So I'm gonna wait because they're already on the bad path anyway. They're gonna turn the iniquity of the Amorites, or the sins of is not yet complete. They're gonna turn and getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And then when they're bad enough, that's when I'll take your people out from the nation which they're going to be enslaved in, right? And then I'll bring them into the promised land and they'll take the land. So the reason why they're going to suffer is actually not because of them. It's because God is just patient. He's not going to try to give the land to, you know what I'm saying? He's not going to give the land. He's not going to bring Israel in to take someone else's land, and they're living in there, and they're not bad people yet.
Now,
right?
This was written down while they're in the desert, because this is right. Please.
Oh, I was just gonna say that. I just had a flashback to episode 1.
Yeah.
When we were talking about why was Genesis even written, and we were like, well, they were in the desert, and like Moses, was getting ready. He had to encourage these people, and the word of the Lord came to him. The Holy Spirit inspired him, and he started writing this down. So it's super neat in my mind that this is being written for the nation of Israel while they are kind of like, they already went through the suffering. They're still wandering around and suffering, but they've been delivered from it. And so even some of them are maybe like, why do we even have to go through that? Is this God real that he put us through that? And so the fact that they can like look back and be like, oh, God said this was going to happen.
Yeah,
I see. That's like super cool to me that we can look back to where that where
it
that
not only
was.
says this is going to happen, because it's easy to say, oh, God said all the things from the past were going to happen, but then it goes, and here's what's going to happen next, because they didn't yet get that land, and it says you will. There is a specific land that you're going to, and it's not yours yet, but you will get it, kind of a thing. Like, it does give that little extra bit of whatever you know what I mean, the next 40 or less years from when this was written, since they were in the desert.
But are the Amorites praying to the same God?
That was a question I had too. Why, and we don't know God's interactions with any other peoples, and we can't say that he did or didn't. So I am kind of curious, I wonder why he didn't interact with them to try to get them to stop.
Well, maybe he did. We don't know, because the stories, like for example, that's like when we talked about Melchizedek, right? Who was some random person.
Yeah.
He was from a different random city.
Which we should talk about with Ray. Ray wants to talk about Melchizedek at the end of it.
And he was a priest, right, of God, right? But he's not part of Abram. He's just a random person. So who knows? Maybe there was one of the Amorites who were like, you know what? We want to do the right thing. And they have priests too. Maybe that's why God didn't destroy them.
maybe, but
Or
also
maybe they weren't. Yeah.
or maybe like God's like, yeah, I'm gonna reach out to them because I'm just and I am fair. I just know they're gonna fail because I'm also God and I know that they're gonna fail. Like, and that's the hard part for our perspective. The idea of like, okay, you know all, but also you're acting you have your hands in the mix here, so God. Like, why don't you just know what's gonna happen and allow? You know what I mean? So it's interesting because I think we talked about this in a previous episode. It seemed like God was being reactive, and it's like, yeah, for our sake, not for His sake. So I think it's just also interesting to go. Okay,
I mean,
He
like
knows
you
what's
got to
gonna
give
happen.
people a chance before, like,
Even if you know they're
all
gonna
you do
fail.
is just destroy people and it's like, oh, I destroyed them because they were gonna be bad. It's like, I don't believe, like, that just sounds.
I don't know. If
No,
it,
but
part of me
I'm not
feels
even
like the
saying-
Amorites.
No,
Part
but
of me feels
I'm
like
not
the
even
Amorites
saying.
didn't pray to. Go ahead.
It's okay. I was just gonna say I'm not even saying like destroy them now because they're gonna be bad. But did He throw them a life raft? I don't know. And if He did, I think He's still justified in going, yeah, I did. I just know they're not gonna take it. But I'm not gonna hold them accountable to that until they make that choice.
Yeah,
and
or
I
maybe,
know it's gonna happen.
maybe He knew they'll take it for about like 400 years,
Exactly.
and all of a sudden they're gonna just start, well, they do some wild stuff.
The
Later on, like
Amorites.
Amorites, yeah, like child sacrifice and cannibalism.
I don't know. Something tells me they're praying to the same God, and that God is doing the thing when you overpromise to a bunch of people and you're trying to move things around too much. Where He's like, all right, cool.
You think
So
God's
Amorites, here
doing
you
a
go.
pyramid scheme?
No, not even that.
No,
Not even
maybe,
that.
yeah, maybe
It
there's.
sounds like
I
right
think
now
that
He's like, you know what, Amorites, I made you a promise a while ago. Here, I'm going to give you some slaves for 400 years to make up for the promise I made you. And then as a result of that,
they're not the slaves of the Amorites.
So
they're going to be slaves to the Egyptians. Just
okay.
Okay,
so I thought he was saying that the Amorites were going to finally do something justifiable for Him to kick them out of their land.
Yeah,
because the Israelites are going to leave Egypt and go
Yes.
to Canaan where the Amorites live.
And take it from
So never mind, that
the
pokes a
Amorites.
big hole in my theory. I thought He was promising the Amorites something a long time ago. Now He's like, you know what? I'll give you this thing.
Well, I
in
do
400
like
years.
your theory because I think there's some truth to it. It's the same reason why God wouldn't just take Israel out of Egypt and immediately bring them into the Amorites. It's also the big reason why doesn't God just destroy Egypt and then have Israel just be in Egypt, right? I think God has a certain level of care or attention to all these people, right? The Bible's doesn't ever really paint a picture of, well, only Israel's good and everyone's bad. I mean, for some reason, some people now may think that, but that's never it's clearly not the concept in this chapter or even the previous chapter with Melchizedek or things like that.
And Egypt
God's
was nice
a god
to Israel.
God's a god of like all the people. So He's not going to just treat everyone else bad and just the Israelites get chosen special favor. No. So if you have all these people living in this same area and they're good, you have good relationships with these people. Like, I mean, you love them too. Why would you okay, the Israelites I promised Abram he's going to have his people and I'm going to fulfill his promise, but I'm also going to say hey, it's not going to feel like a promise at first because I'm going to have to put you into this other place and you're going to be treated badly for a little while, right?
And that's the intertwining of the plan. It's so complex and only He can understand it.
So God's just making this plan. He's like, all right, I'm going to tell you, you're going to have your people, you're going to have your entire race basically, but I can't bring them in yet, so you're going to have to be in Egypt. Egypt's actually a pretty great place to actually be a people, but you're going to kind of be treated like slaves. It'll be great at first, then you're going to be treated like slaves. I'll punish them for treating you badly too. But see, God's just really playing chess with all
Does
these
he
players.
understand? Does he understand? Or is He fixing things now to patch something up, and now going over to try to fix something else, and then patch that up? There's no grand plan. I mean, there is, but
I think there is a grand plan, but I think the problem is God has.
I'm not
to
saying there
act
isn't. I'm just saying.
No, yeah,
that it's interesting that it looks like.
I think it's complex because God has to act not based on what He just would do. He can't just do everything because then we wouldn't be free to do whatever we want. So because we're free to do whatever we want, He has to he has to play chess with us, right? 'Cause
Well,
So what if he
we're the
decides to
radical
send over
factor.
the slaves to the Egyptians and they say, you know what, we're not going to accept slaves. We don't want to do that. That's incorrect for us. We're not going to do that. Doesn't that interrupt the plan now?
yeah,
So
which
now
is why
they
I
don't-
think God did bring them into Egypt and not into Assyria or not into another nation, right? Because what if another nation wouldn't treat them as slaves? What if another nation would just kill them? Or what if another nation would accept them and then they would intermarry?
Killing
and
them
they
is
would not be
justifiable enough.
and then they would not be a people anymore. They would just be assimilated into a different nation, right? Like there's so many different things going on. So I don't know.
He knows which ones will be successful. That's
And
why
then on
the
top of that,
choices he
God
makes.
still has to also think like, yeah, but eventually I need to bring Jesus into the world at some point, and they need to kill him, because if they don't kill him, then
That's
I still
the
have to
thought.
judge people based off of what they do.
Since Ken's getting hyped,
if
I'm getting hyped
We're
too.
doing it.
If I have to judge people based on what they do, all these people I'm gonna have to say,
Yeah.
you guys aren't good enough to live forever, and I
And
want
I'm
all
bringing
these
it
people
back.
to live forever.
Ken,
So
you
I need
said
to
that.
bring about a world where
Preach.
I can literally come in and they would still kill me, right?
Yes.
So, like, how do
You
I
said that
make the
before.
world bad enough where I can come in and they can still kill me, so that if they do that, then I can basically forgive them for everything legally in front of all the, like, it's, man, it's tough.
Well,
I
and
would
that's
just
what you
wipe
said-
the world out and start.
But here's the thing. That's what you said before. You were like, God has been, he's given us way more than we deserve, even to the point of going, you know what I mean? Like the idea of like, I still need to make this in a way so that justice can be served, but justice will be served upon me. Because if he was just fair and just, he would have justice be filled upon the people who did the wrongdoing, right? But he also loves us so much that he's turning around and he's going, yes, justice needs to be served because that is the right thing to do, and God does not do anything that's unjust. He does not do anything that is wrong. But he says, I need to do that upon me. And part of that means I need to be sacrificed. I need
Before
to
someone
be the
responds.
sacrifice.
Before someone responds, I got to go. How do we do this?
I guess you just leave and we just continue in your absence. Get out of here, Eugene, you bum.
Cool.
I'm gonna call you later.
Love you
Just so know.
guys. Love you
you too,
guys.
man.
Text me. I will be with my fiance. Oh, will be fiance. I'll explain that as well.
Ooh.
Okay.
Whoa.
All right.
Okay. Put that in. I'll see you later.
Oh,
Yeah, Eugene's out.
what a loser. All right. Oh, man.
No, but some of the stuff you were saying was just like it's so cool to see how this plan of
Yeah.
God's just like gets so intricate that we just can't even begin to fathom. And I just think about how it just keeps going and going and going until you hit Revelation, and then it's just like, boom, I am back. Behold, he comes.
I
Like,
know,
like,
right?
oh man.
No, I don't want to talk about Revelation. Yeah, I was on a high, and now I'm like, oh god, I forgot.
I forgot there's even more
That
complex.
scares me so much.
Yeah.
You don't have to get there.
But like, yeah, I think this is great, and I think, I think God's kind of he's making these promises to Abram because it's extremely important. But then on top of that too, he's also kind of showing his disclaimers. It's like, it's not, I'm making these promises, but I got to deal with these other things, which I think is awesome. And I think what is really cool, like Ray was saying, was who was the audience of this?
Mhm.
It's the people who are literally in the desert right now, about to go into the promised land, right?
Yeah.
They're about to go into fulfill exactly what God said to Abram right now. It's pretty cool. But they don't
Yeah.
even see the big picture at this point.
Yeah.
No, definitely not. Can I ask a question to you guys? Who am I?
No.
James, yes.
I was gonna say no.
But so I've never thought of that idea of, yes, kind of everybody's on the same playing field, and I'll promise these things to you, but I'm not going to give them to you at the expense of these people unless they deserve it, because I am God and I am fair and I am just. I think that's a really awesome representation of that. We just went through all that. So why does it seem like the Abrahamic people going forward are the main characters? I know that there's like a lot of reference to them as like the chosen people. I don't really know what that means. So I just think that's something I want to ask you guys as learned men.
So, okay. So, I mean,
There you go.
I would say for that, I mean, well, actually, let me make Raymond say something, because I've been dominating the.
What was the question? Was about Israel being like God's chosen
the
people.
chosen people.
Yeah, well, it seems like so the what is it? I keep messing up their name because there's so many Alakites and Edomites and the Amorites. So the Amorites, it looks like God is being very fair to them. He's saying, yes, that land will be yours one day. That is part of my plan. And I would promise that to you. But not right now, because why am I taking it away from them? That's not fair. And I think that's a really great opportunity to see, oh, God is being fair to everybody. He's not favoriting. Because that is a thought I've been having. Why does he have this favoritism amongst, we could say, the Jews or the Abrahamic people or whatever? And that's why that phrase, the chosen people, right? I know that's what the Jews or the Abrahamic religions or whatever you want to say are kind of called. So I guess my question is, why does it seem like these people are the main characters when there's all these other people in the world? Is there a specific reason or that you guys would know? I don't know. Or maybe I'm just prompting some thought, but it's just the question that keeps popping into my head.
Well, I don't know if I have a great answer. My thought is that, like, you know, the nation of Israel, they're like the people who stayed close to the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so like, you know, I have to remind myself a lot of times I go back to Noah. So like flood, you know, evilness, get rid of it all.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, like God still has to disperse, like things rebuild a little bit until we get to the Tower of Babel. Then he disperses everyone. So at that point, like there's still like, you know, by the time you get to Tower of Babel, like, yes, God reset, but you still have people who are like, let's build a tower for us to see how great, you know, like pretty quickly it goes south again. But I think, again, I don't know if I have a great answer, but I feel like the people who stayed closest to the Lord was that nation of Israel. I don't know, what do you think, Kenneth?
Well, let me interject real quick because I see what you're saying, but so if we're going to say like the people who would have built the Tower of Babel, right? There's some of those people, I'm sure, in the people of Israel, right?
Sure, yeah.
So I just find it interesting that they're like, oh, this entire, I don't know what you want to call it, nationality, lineage of people, whatever, seems chosen, whatever that even means, you know? That's what I get the idea of saying, like, maybe some of these other, when they disperse from the tower, maybe there are lines of people who did fall away from him, and so he just wasn't going to effectively get his work done through them.
Chosen. So God did choose a specific. Chosen just means that's the line where Christ came. That's the race.
That's people. All that means?
Yeah, it's the race of people that God specifically chose to do. It would have to have been some people, right? He just chose one. That's what it means by chosen. Okay. That's all it means. And through, like in Romans, it says, through this race of people are the oracles of God, basically. Like we know about God's redemptive purpose, his true plan through this race. The race wasn't special. God made them special because he chose them. He chose Abram, and that's what it was. And out of Abram, it's not just because of the hereditary line, because then all of the offspring would have been chosen. It's just because he chose specific people within that line to then bring about Jesus, and then through that family, just communicate with them more and more. It doesn't mean that they're anything special. What makes them special is that they just happen to be the group that God chose.
Well, and I guess that's kind of puts both of your answers together, right? So like Ray, you said that they stayed close to God, but maybe they stayed close to God because God was interacting with them the most because he chose them, right? If God keeps showing up in your history pretty often, you're probably more likely to, maintain that relationship a little bit better than other nations, even though there is this priest Melchizedek, right? So he's still present in other places. I guess that makes a lot more sense. I didn't know what chosen meant. And I think a lot of people today still don't because they'll refer to it as like, we are the chosen people. And I'm like, hold on. Because I like what you said, Kenneth, about the idea of like, no, it's not about the individual because then everybody would be treated in this very high way. And I don't think that's true.
It literally just means what the word means. Like God chose Abraham. Abraham did it. And that was the one he chose. Like that's what it means. And they've been given, because they were chosen by God, they've been given certain things. They've been given the scriptures. They've been given many different revelations about God, who he is, and things like that. And then they rejected him. So on top of that, like,
And I'm sorry, but before you go further, and people outside of that chosen race, religion, whatever, did accept him.
Exactly.
So it's not like him choosing. I'm just gonna say the Jews, right? No, I don't like that because I don't want to sound like I'm talking about today's people. I'll say the people of Israel back then, not the nation of Israel, the people of Israel, right? So like even the fact that he chose the people of Israel did not limit who was going to accept him. It was not like he chose them and only those people are saved, because now look at us. None of the three of us are, are.
And that goes back
excuse
into
me.
that
What?
goes back really. Huh?
Me, yeah. I think ancestrally they go by usually through the mother's line for that, and my mom was Jewish before she was saved and accepted Christ. Yeah, my whole half of the family is Jewish.
So I mean, and that
Never mind.
on top of that, I mean that's really goes into a lot of Romans, which Paul makes this huge arc, because I mean Romans is,
Jew, Gentile, slave, Greek, he goes into
because and he also says it's like, well, not all who are born or circumcised are of actual Abraham. How do you know someone is a child of Abraham? That's kind of the argument that Paul makes. He's saying it's based on the promise. It's based off of righteousness. It's not based off of blood or heredity. Is that the word? It's not based off of your lineage.
This.
It's based off the promise. So the people who were all grafted into the family of Abraham based on the promise, based on the faith that we have. And that's how Gentiles, basically, that's his argument, are part of the thing. I have to read the verse to make sure it's as clear or not as clear, but that's kind of the thing. So at some point, one could really say, well, we are also Israel, because Israel is not a biological, physical thing. It's a spiritual thing.
Asgard is not a place, it's a people.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Israel is just a term that means those who strive with God.
That's why I was trying to communicate before about, like, I didn't mean like the nation of it now, but I guess that I didn't know that was the meaning of it. That's cool. Yeah. That's really cool. This is, it's funny. I always love a chapter when I read it and I go, what are we going to talk about? And an hour and a half in, we go,
pretty good. I mean, one other point I did want to make is God specifically says the Amorites. Now, the land they're gonna take, Amorites are not the only one in there. Do you guys think that it's just everyone else is already bad? Because like if you look at the last sentence in the chapter, and I don't have it pulled up for some reason. I was looking at something else. But
it mentions, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, not 10 different, I guess, tribes or nations. You say, nations. Tribes is more Israel.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. So there's a whole bunch of things, but God's just talking about the Amorites. Maybe they're all bad, and the Amorites are the only kind of still good ones. And he's waiting, like, all right, they're going to be decent enough for the next 400 years, and then the whole thing will be bad enough for the Israelites to come in and take them all out. Yeah,
that makes sense. I mean, I think that makes total sense.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, I can't because these specific people haven't condemned, the city's on its way out, or the land is on its way out, but there's still some people in there. Because isn't that part of like Sodom and Gomorrah, which I know we didn't get to yet, where it's like, yeah, there's some righteous people still in there, so I'm not going to destroy it right now. Or I don't remember I just remember that was a thing somewhere.
Yeah, there's a whole conversation where Abram says, if there is, 50 righteous, would you not destroy it? If there any... Yeah, we'll get there.
So that's why. So I guess it's the same logic where he's like, yeah, the land is not full of corrupt people, although a lot of them are.
The idea is that, Abraham keeps... is he Abram or Abraham at that point? He's Abraham at that point. As he intercedes, he asks, if there's 50, and then he says if there's 20, if he says if there's 10, but I'm pretty sure the idea is that there were none, and that's why God went and destroyed it, right? I know we're getting ahead.
Yes, but that's what I'm saying is, so God is using the same line of logic here, where he's going, hey, right now, even though there's all these people in the land that I'm promising you, there's still some that aren't bad. And so I'm not going to punish the land yet until they are, because he knows what's going to happen. So he goes, they will be bad, and that's when I'll hold them accountable to it, which is nice. Not nice, but you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
so I mean
that it works out.
Yeah. I think personally in our own lives too, there may be things that we kind of suffer through, nothing to do with us. It's because you got to suffer through this because of somebody else, right? and God's working things around. So that's why, like, a lot of times, people say, well, maybe we'll find out in the end, right, of why everything else happened, or why this happened, or why this person died at this time, or why am I going through this kind of tough things at this time. And you maybe you'll never get an answer in your own lifetime because you can't see the big picture. But in the end, we kind of just have to trust that God has a reason for a lot of these different things that he allows people to go through.
And, I do trust that God has all that, but I do hope he allows us to understand it at some point, at least in our own personal life. Like, it'd be nice to look back whenever that may be and go, oh, man, God, look at that moment where I was, like, hurting and I didn't know if you were there. You were right there. Like, I don't know. I just hope that we do get to see it. Even though I know it's happening, and I do trust it's happening, it's like at the end of, like, a Christopher Nolan movie where hey, this is all going to be explained, but I'm so confused. And then at the end, you don't understand it completely, but a lot more stuff makes sense.
Yeah.
So I do hope we can see that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, well, part of it is those secret things. Like, God likes secret things.
Yeah.
And you got to get closer to him to understand certain things.
Because if it wasn't a secret, then you would just do what he says. Yeah. And is that really utilizing your free will as much as
there's that proverb in the book of Proverbs. It's the glory of God to conceal a thing, and the glory of man or the glory of kings to uncover it. Right?
Oh, that's cool. I'm not
I gotta find
familiar with that one. I like that.
Oh, where is it?
Well, while you're looking for it, that's what I remember. I was working with an instructional leader, and we were talking about, like, that allowing your students, I said this before, to learn something because you've set the stage for them to figure it out themselves. That's a really good way to teach, because then they have ownership of it and they've found it and they have a better understanding than if you just said, hey, this is what it is. They have to go through the detective process almost themselves.
It's Proverbs 25 verse 2.
Last thing, unless we have anything else to talk about, besides God showing up as fire, which I found out there's like a column of fire and later on in the Bible that is like the presence of God, which is super interesting, and I can't wait to get to that. But at the beginning of all this, Ray wanted to talk about Melchizedek, and it's because I'm Catholic, so I'm curious.
No, we don't have to go too much into it. I mean,
no, but I'm curious what you're going to ask.
No, not just that. I just said I would have loved to be a part of the conversation of it, but that's I guess an episode before this. I think it's so interesting, that he pops up. I think he's interesting that he's like spoken about in the New Testament as like and compare, like that Christ and him are compared. I think it's super. This is the first place you see like the giving of a tithe of a tenth. Just I don't know, a lot of cool stuff.
Well, it's interesting because I've just heard the name, and I think there's, because my wife sings at church, like I think there's, I guess, a psalm, because when someone says Melchizedek, you kind of notice somebody said that word because it sticks out.
It's a common name. It was going to be our if we had a third son, but our third was a daughter. But
Melky,
Yeah. But no, so I'm like, but I didn't know anything about him, and I don't know anything about him after that moment. You know what I mean? So, like you said, like he was compared to Jesus later on. Like, in what way?
In Hebrews.
I don't. Is it besides the fact that he brought bread and wine? Because we saw that comparison. We were like, oh my gosh, I know someone else who brought bread and wine to a party.
Yeah, I mentioned it in that episode, I think. But in the book of Hebrews, the writer of Hebrews kind of compares Jesus, because remember, there's the priestly line, hereditary, of the Levites in Israel. So like there's Abram.
Are those the ones who could carry the
Those are the
Ark?
only ones who could carry the Ark of the Covenant.
So
right?
Abram's a Levite.
No.
He's the first Levite?
Abram has a son called Isaac.
Oh.
Isaac has a son called Jacob. One of Jacob's sons was called Levi. Levi had he had many children, but they were called the Levites.
The head of that tribe.
And the Levites were the tribe that was the priests.
Because out of Jacob's sons is where you get the 12 tribes.
Got it. Okay.
So all the line of the priesthood were descendants of Levi, the Levites. Jesus was not a descendant of Levi. He was a descendant of Judah. So how could Jesus become a priest? So in Hebrews, it was saying that Jesus was a priest like in the order of Melchizedek, one out of his own relationship with God.
not of
not out
this
of
hereditary
the
practice.
exactly, not of like the hereditary practice or like legalisms of Israel of the day. Mm-hmm.
Because keep in mind, Hebrew, you always have to go back to the audience. The Hebrews was written to the Hebrew people that weren't quite understanding Jesus. And, so it talks a lot about, is circumcision really necessary? Is the Levite line really necessary? So, that's like basically why he's talking about Melchizedek, because only kind of those Jewish people would have really been interested in, hey, is this allowed? Because this isn't what the Old Testament promised exactly. And it says, oh, well, let's explain.
That's going to be so interesting to dive into. I hope you guys bring up a lot when we get into, I assume that's like Deuteronomy is what, because that's where all the rules are, right? Is Deuteronomy?
There's a lot of rules in Deuteronomy.
So I would love for you guys, I hope you guys kind of bring to the table, because you know a lot more than I do. What
does that mean? I'm invited back?
Please come back, please. Everybody loves you, Ray. No, but I hope you guys bring to the table that idea of like, oh, look at this rule that's in Deuteronomy that Jesus breaks later or says is unnecessary or whatever along the line. So because I think that'll just be really cool. Okay, well then why is it implemented now and etc. But we'll get there when we get there.
Cool. I did want to make one final point. Of just interest. I'll leave it in.
Is
God
that a media
says,
recommendation? Because James would be very excited.
Unfortunately.
Gone with the Wind.
God says Abram, for his part, will live to a nice old age, live in peace, and return to his ancestors or to his fathers. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of people maybe nowadays will think down of people who talk about the ancestors, right? Or that kind of spiritualism in like and The Lion King, right? Where Mufasa is in the stars in the heavens or whatever, and he still exists and he's giving. But I would say even here, I don't think there's any negative thought about that kind of concept or that feeling.
Well, why would that be negative? You kind of.
Oh yeah, well, some people think of that as like paganism, spiritualism, because many cultures, even today, that are not necessarily Christian, in South America, Africa, Native Americans, they venerate their ancestors. And maybe this is not weird for you because you're Catholic. Huh.
What are you talking about? How we have saints that we say we can kind of confirm from our end are in heaven?
Yeah.
I mean, but here's the thing. It sounds like in that moment, God is going, hey, I'm telling you right now, these people are in heaven and you will be reunited with them.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah, I think the veneration process and being able to turn around and say somebody's a saint or not, at least personally as a Catholic, I think that's us kind of going, like, it's funny because I've been listening to another podcast that's very Catholic. I don't know if you guys listen to Pints with Aquinas. Shout out to Pints with Aquinas. They're great. And like they're very defensive of Catholic processes, and it's been nice because there are a lot of things that people question that I went, oh, this is cool. I didn't know the context here or XYZ. That's why one day we should have that conversation about why Kenneth hates Catholics because he hates them.
I do not hate.
No, I'm kidding.
I got a small beef too. We could. I'm on his side.
No, I would love to talk about that because I know from my perspective, and I'm constantly learning. Like I was brought up traditionally Catholic in practice, but I didn't understand everything, which is I think my problem with most organized religion is they kind of just teach you what to believe and not why to believe all the time. But so I don't. When they talk about like, oh, this person's a saint, I'm like, yeah, because we said so. Like unless God is coming down and maybe giving I don't know if there are allowed to be even prophets going forward anymore, but unless God comes down and says, hey, by the way, here are the people that are in heaven, or I'm going to tell you at least this person's in heaven. At the end of the day, that's our church's best guess. But in this instance, it is not our church's best guess of like, hey, I'm determining based on how they live their lives that they probably went to heaven. Because I think when Jesus says we do not judge, he's not talking about judging other people's actions. He's saying you don't judge whether they are saved or not. So the veneration process, I do kind of look at it and I go, yeah, it's our guess, but I don't really pray to saints asking them to pray for me, except for when they do it in church. I do pray that Mary prays for me, and that's a different conversation. I know that's not continued everywhere else, but in this situation, I'm watching God go, hey, Abram, this is where you're going to be. And if God says that your ancestors are in heaven,
Then it must be true. Yeah.
I mean, it's God, you know?
Yeah, that was a thought. That was all my thoughts.
I got one final thought.
Yeah.
All right. So verse 6, we said was kind of a big one. And and he believed. So, and Abram believed the Lord, and God counted to him as righteousness.
Mm-hmm.
So, Franklin, the beginning of this episode, you mentioned, something came up just real quick. It was a sentence about heaven, and you were like, if I hopefully, do good enough, and I think I'm going to go there or whatnot. And so, let me ask you a question. Do you think that still applies today? That someone who believes in God and has faith is counted as righteous due to that faith?
What do you define righteous?
Able to define righteous. Can I go to AI? No,
you can. But do you mean saved?
God in heaven is perfect, and only perfect can be with him, and so like wiped clean, like righteous, like you are.
Okay, so yes, basically you're saying that you're taking that as saved.
Yeah. Do you think that still applies today? That if someone believes in God and has complete faith in them, and of course now we also have the new covenant and believes that, as I know you do, that Jesus died, on the cross for our sins. Do you think that God still counts to that, like looks at us with righteousness because of that, like that we're clean because of it?
Well, yes, but with a really big asterisk on that, right? So I do believe that. I do think that because without that, we can never be perfect enough for God, right?
No, we can't. No.
I forget what I was reading this book that a colleague gave me that you read every morning, and it was basically like you could go to the monastery and pray every second of your life and worship God the entire time, and you will never pray enough to get your way into heaven. Like there's nothing we could do to get there except to wipe ourselves clean with faith, right? Be it in the Lord our God, and I also believe in his three forms, right? Being Jesus and the Holy Spirit, in addition to just God the Father. But I really emphasize the idea that I can't tell you which one of us here or out of here are righteous in that way. I brought this up in a previous episode. I don't know if it's out yet. Jordan Peterson talks about this a lot, and I do think he gets a little dramatic when people ask him. I think he knows what people are asking him, and he's playing a little bit of a game, but I do get what he's saying. People go, do you believe in God? And he'll go, well, what the heck does that mean? Because I most certainly don't act like it, right? If you were to say, I believe in this all-powerful, all-seeing being who we're only here, allowed to be here because he willed it, and can only be saved from eternal damnation if we do X, Y, Z, wouldn't you never do anything wrong? Because the risk is too high, right? But we still do. So he kind of turns around and goes, well, sometimes I don't act like I believe, so do I believe? I don't know. I think what people are asking him is, hey, do you think that God exists? And he's, playing this game. But either way, so I don't know what that looks like for everybody. And I don't know if it's, I don't use the word equitable too much, but I don't think it's equitable to do it that way. We talked about this in our Bible study with Romans, and I think I said this exact same thing on a previous episode too. In Romans, I think it says that Jesus or God or both has been revealed to everybody, has been revealed to their hearts, right? So if you're on a deserted island and you've never heard the name Jesus, can you believe in him? I don't think God's going to punish you for being born there. So what does that mean? Again, there's no, people coming over to your island to evangelize you. Is that your fault? That doesn't sound just from my perspective, and I'll emphasize that's from my perspective. So, or what about a child? You know what I mean? Or somebody who lived a life where the people around them, whom they have no control over, convince them that God doesn't exist or that Jesus isn't king, right? And they were brought up in this way and pushed out of it. Like I know people who have had such hateful experiences from the church that they were brought up in, and they went, this isn't for me. But the way they lived their lives was one that I'm like, you're going to tell me you don't believe in Jesus? Because it seems like you're following the things he said to do. I don't know if that counts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I know it's I hope it's not a cop-out answer, but
No,
I
no,
do
no.
believe the answer is yes, that still applies.
Yeah.
I would just say God he judges every situation accordingly. And so I can't look at someone and tell you whether or not they're righteous or not.
Yeah, I
I
don't
don't
think
have the
I don't
ability.
think we can. Well, the reason I bring it up is because and you're probably like, man, I said that one sentence an hour and a half ago. How can you remember that? And the
No,
reason
I've
is,
known you for years. I know you lock into something and be like, that's for later.
like I love so much, and like, praise the Lord.
Mhm.
I love so much that I can have just like 100% assurance that because of what Christ did for me and that I've given my life over to him, that when God the Father looks at me, he doesn't see the sin. He just sees me covered in the righteousness of Christ. And so you just said, like,
Yes.
like, just for you as my friend, when you said like, oh, like, I'm hoping that like things are going to work out and that I've done it, I just know that I feel so good having that assurance. And I
Yeah.
just want you as my pal to know that that assurance
Well,
is there.
In response to you as my acquaintance. No, I'm just kidding. I just wanted to say that.
Get a little
the-
evangelical, sorry.
Well, because I struggle with that a lot, and it's funny. I know Catholics are known for guilt, right? But I guess that Jordan Peterson idea has rubbed off on me because I'm not going to tell you guys every time I falter and fall to sin. I'm not very proud of those moments, right? So I sit here and I kind of go, I'm pretty sure I love God and Jesus above all else, and I'm so thankful for what he's done for me. And I do believe in him. But if I really believed in him, would I have done those things? Not that I wouldn't be a sinner, but I look at some of the sins I do and I go, I couldn't have avoided that one. So I just want to make sure, I look at it as I believe so hard that I'm never going to sit here and go, hey, Zach, I'm never going to sit here and go, hey, Franklin, you're good now. You know what I mean? You're okay. And I'm not saying you don't feel this way, Ray. I guess I look at it as like, it just in my head, I have to keep going. I can't, just like Jesus said, we shouldn't judge other people whether they're saved or not. That includes myself. You know what I mean? So I don't know if I believe hard enough to be saved. So every day I'm going to try harder to believe harder and to love him harder because I know that it can never be enough. You know what I mean? I'm always going to falter, and so I'm just going to keep pushing ahead. It's like a Nietzschean idea, I think, if I remember from 15 years ago, freshman year of college, the idea of you have to aim to be perfect, but you have to totally understand you're not going to hit that, right? Because if you aim any lower, then your bar is set too low. But if you expect to be perfect in that way, you're going to burn out. And then obviously you're definitely not going to reach it because you're going to quit. Wow, that was a fun thing to dig into there.
There's a lot more in there.
There is, but I
we
think that's for
gotta-
another time.
Exactly. We gotta wrap it up. This is good. Better because I was here.
Is this the part where it goes like do 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 do?
That's gonna be the thing. That's even better.
All right.
It is that time.
If you're listening, I prayed for you to like me. You didn't, but that's okay. I'm happily married.
Every Cynthia is going, is it me?
Is it me?